Right, welcome to obviously this week's video. So this week we are going to have a look at sort of faces, especially smaller faces, and a little bit on hair and how to make them quite nice, quite easy, like we did with the orcs, just trying to make it so that you can achieve something quite realistically and not a great deal of time. I'm not going to give the colours used for this because it's not really important to what we're trying to achieve. You're looking to mix colours to get your sort of nice skin tone. So as you can see here, I've kind of used a mixture of colours, not just flesh tones, but adding other colours into there. So like purples, blues, just a little bit of that, just to create a base mix. What that's going to do is mean that we're going to start from that base mix and we're going to add a highlight colour into it to make the highlights of it. So everything goes from that base pool, everything from the shadow, so I'm just going to add it to that and just basically bring it downwards to the highlights where I'm just going to add it upwards. So I'm just sort of filling in the colours on the hair at the moment just to do. So we just want a nice sort of mid-tone-ish colour just for the hair at the moment. It's really important as well that at this sort of early stage, get the eyes in and get them in first. It seems a bit silly to do the whole face, make it look lovely, and then decide we're going to put the eyes on. It's going to make your life a bit more difficult as you're doing it. So once we've got that base colour on there, get the eyes in. Either way is a good way of doing it. Put the white in and then put a black dot, or put black in and put two white dots. It depends on which you find easiest. At the end of the day, it's completely down to you. I seem to be able to do the sort of, well, as it's facing me, his left eye is easy, but when I come to do the right eye, it's always a pain. So you can just see there's a bit of back and forth on this, just making a bit of a mess and tidying it up. But this is why it's good to do this nice and early. At least then I can get all this mess out of the way. It's always good to have a nice dark ring around the eyes when we're finished. Just helps to set them out as we're doing it, and also just a sort of nice glazy colour around the eyes just to make it a lot more easier. When adding in sort of highlight colours this, you're sort of looking for them, first off, let's get the colour into that really high point on the face. So we're looking at cheeks, the top of the forehead, chin. Obviously on this case we're not doing it because he's got a beard, but on most of the others you will. So let's get that in there and then glaze up into that colour just to make the transition nice and smooth. We still need some nice contrast in the actual model itself, even though on the face. So we need to just be a bit more gentle with this. We don't want really harsh, stark contrast in small areas because it will come off really badly. So lots of glazes really help with this, just to make it a smoother transition. And you know, if you go up and you've ended up putting in too much highlight colour, just add a bit more of your sort of first tone and then just bring it downwards again nicely. As I'm putting more highlights on there, I'll just concentrate on the same areas, but I just won't cover as much of it with that base sort of layer that I'm doing. So every layer just adds a little bit less, as like what we did with the orc before. Now when you're doing the hair, it's really important, especially at an early stage, not to just pick out individual strands straight away. Look for areas. So start adding colour to areas, and then as you progress up the highlights, then you can start picking less areas and more strands out. And the same with the shade. Pick areas where we're going to put lots of shade in there, and then you can start adding a couple of nice lines into there. It makes it so much easier when you're doing it, and you don't end up with that sort of emo effects like you get on what's it, Shriek, the Raven Guard, where it has that emo style hairdo for every model. So just pick a few areas. If you're quite unsure of what area to put the highlights in on the hair, just have a look on Google. It's absolutely stock full of images of models where you can just see where sort of hair shine appears, and it's a real easy way of just like working out, well, where should I put it, because it's a good tool to use, and don't shy away from using it, especially like for faces and that. So as I said to start with, we're not putting the recipe in for what we did in it. Now again, depending on what you're doing, you can add any sort of colour to that base mix and then just bring it upwards with a nice flesh tone. It just means that your flesh just has some interest in it, and when you're glazing colours in there, just pick different colours, add it to that base mix, glaze it down, and then glaze it into the sort of recesses, so everything's going from that pool, but you're just getting a real interesting colour. We just want to get away from the dark flesh, light flesh, even lighter flesh, white sort of colour scheme, because it just never works too nicely. We just want our skin to look a bit more natural, so this works for any sort of skin tone, so I mean, you can make it a darker skin tone or any sort of different tones where it just change the colours as you do into it. So don't, you know, have an experiment with it, and don't be too afraid to try new things. Greens, Inky by Darkness works really nicely for this, so just have a little experiment as what you're doing. As we get to sort of the last stages, really on such a small face, just touching real gentle areas, not going overboard with it, and again with the hair, just picking out smaller areas, especially towards that top bit. So I've isolated that top bit as where the shine is going to be the most, and obviously as the hair sort of bushes upwards in that nice style, it's quite a really nice dynamic model. I really like this new Lord of the Rings figures that they've been doing. And see, I'm just coming up towards sort of the last sort of stage of the highlights, just getting in there with that real L'Oreal type shine on there. Again, just picking out less and less each time, just working out. Now, if anywhere looks too stark, again, just glaze it back in, and then just pick out some more highlights with it. And again, you can do this with any hair sort of colour. So again, hopefully this has been sort of useful for your sort of small faces, and again, you can do this with bigger faces. Just sort of make sure that we don't have such a stark area as we're doing it. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you.